Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. It's a beautiful fall day in November. The bees are getting a little bit of flying time, which is great. Temperatures are currently in the 40s, so the vast majority of bees are still in the hives. It is a perfect day to be doing an oxalic acid vapor treatment. Since the last formic acid treatment, the last mite treatment I did in the hives in September, the bees have had opportunities to rob from hives that are dying from mite overloads. Colonies in hollow trees, unattended hives somewhere, or maybe someone a mile away that doesn't maintain their hives and keep mite levels low. And that gives the bees an opportunity to bring a lot of mites back in the process of robbing the hives after the hive had been made relatively free of mites. And so it is a very good idea at this time of year to go around and just mop up the last of the mites in the hive by doing an oxalic acid treatment. The beauty of doing an oxalic acid treatment is that we don't have to open up the supers, separate the supers out, and that sort of thing. We can just stick the oxalic acid vaporizer in the entrance of the hive, put the fumes in, and what happens then is the oxalic acid heats up in this vaporizer, which we're going to attach to a battery here. This heating element will boil off the oxalic acid, fill the colony with fumes, which will then cool off and crystallize inside the hives, all over the combs, all over the bees, and all over the mites. And those microscopic crystals of oxalic acid will kill the mites that are free on the bees. The other beauty of doing the treatment right now, there's no brood in the hives. The queen has stopped laying about a month ago. All of the bees have emerged from pupation, so there's nowhere for the mites to hide. Being in the 40s and probably nudging 50 now, it's going to get up to 60 today. The bees also are not clustered really tight. Below temperatures of about 37 degrees, the bees will be clustered so tight that the fumes from the oxalic acid vaporizer won't actually penetrate the bees sufficiently to give a thorough treatment to all the bees in the hive. But anyway, what we're going to do now, I'm just going to scrape some of the old stuff off here. A lot of the colonies have had mouse guards put on and entrance reducers, but I've got these without them on for the ease of showing you what to do. But if you've got a mouse guard on or an entrance reducer that makes it too small for this to fit into the hive, just pop it off during the course of the treatment, then you can put it back on again afterwards. Now, oxalic acid is sold in the form of what's called apibiol. Let's see. Apibioxal. And this gives the directions of the dosage and that sort of thing to use. Basically, what you're going to be applying is 1 gram per super of the hive. And 1 gram is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So half a teaspoon is actually all you need to do the hive. There's a lot of research going on as to whether we can do considerably higher dosages of that. So watch the literature for updates on improvements in terms of the use of oxalic acid sold as a apibioxal. I use a lot of it, so I've dispensed oxalic acid into this container here so I can go around relatively quickly. Now, I normally don't use the wand here, but most hobbyist beekeepers, this is the scale that's going to work really well for using the oxalic acid vaporizer. I'll show you later in the video what I use to treat my 100 plus hives to speed things up. What I'm going to do is put half a teaspoon in here. Well, in this case a little bit less, but I put half a teaspoon in here, the element. This is going to go inside the entrance to the hive and place it as near the middle of the cluster as I can. And I'm also going to put a towel over the entrance to try and keep most of those fumes inside the hive. The other end of my vaporizer I'm going to attach to a fully charged up car battery. So it's been on a trickle charger for a couple of days to charge it back up again. Now it's connected. The heating element at the in the hive here is now warming up. Once it gets up to, I've forgotten the temperature, it's about 200 and, no, I've forgotten what the temperature is. Once it gets up to temperature, it will boil off the oxalic acid. Now, what you should be doing, it's hard, I can't do this with a video because you wouldn't be able to hear me, but what you should do when you're using oxalic acid vapor, and I might have to move because the breeze is coming this way, and if the fumes start coming out of here, I don't want to breathe those fumes. What I should be using is this, but for right now I'm going to keep it off just so I can talk to you. This is has filter cartridges on it, which are good for organic acids. That's the appropriate type of mask to use when using oxalic acid vapor. And we will know when the vapor is working because we'll start to see vapor trying to come out of little holes like this. So let's let it do its business. It'll take about 2 minutes of heating up and then maybe another minute or two of boiling off the oxalic acid vapor. So this is from cold, so it's not quite at the point where it's producing the fumes yet, but it will do shortly. In the meantime, I can check to see I've got everything ready for my next hive, because once I'm done with this, I'll apply it into the hive next to it. So these colonies have been fed up. I've left the feeders on. Right now I don't want to take them off because it'll break the seal in there, and we've got the bees have been busy propolizing all the hive, so it makes the hive pretty vapor proof, and so it makes the oxalic acid vapor much more effective when the vapor is contained in the hive. The more it leaks, the less effective it is. If you have a hive that leaks a lot, my inclination would be to add a bit of extra oxalic acid to compensate for that. At least that's what I would do. In my yard, what I recommend is that you follow the instructions on the packet. That's the law. So when I'm done with all my oxalic acid treatments, I'm going to go off, take the buckets off, and prepare all the hives with their upper rims, so have an upper entrance. If they need some feeding, I'll put in winter patties for the winter time. I'll put their insulation on, I'll put their bee cozies on, put a good heavy weight on the top of the hive, and these girls will be ready for the winter. Now I can see the fumes starting to come out of the back. So we know it's vaporizing. See some of the fumes where they haven't quite finished the propolis. So we know it's vaporizing that oxalic acid. It'll be coming out of this entrance as well shortly. The bees don't really like it, but those fumes will be killing off those mites as they crystallize inside the hive. Ideally we'd have no leakage, but that's just a practical impossibility. Now, some bees in the colony will die. The oxalic acid vaporizer is a hot tool, and it's leaning against the bottom of the frames. It may very easily have burnt a few bees, but As mite treatments go, this one probably kills less bees than just about every other treatment I know of. I would say there's a very high probability the oxalic acid on this wand is all vaporized now. We'll have a quick peek, have a quick look and see. If not, we'll put the towel back on and keep it going. And that's done. So what we have here is a bit of melted wax which is burning there, so the smoke that's coming off right now is just the smoke of burning wax. Good idea to just brush that off where we can and get ready to go on to the next hive. Now what you should do is let it cool off. So you disattach the heat and let it cool off, and that way, I'm just cleaning it off as well. You put on the oxalic acid cool and put it in the hive. I would say that most beekeepers will not wait until it cools. They're going to actually put it on and put it straight in the hive, but you may end up with a face full of oxalic acid. So you're better off letting it cool a bit first before you put the oxalic acid in, so that when you put the oxalic in, it doesn't just start boiling away right away, because you want it to boil away when it's inside the hives. So what we're doing with this is we're going to let the vapors in here. The bees can't ventilate it out efficiently because we've blocked up the entrance. So the vapors in here are just cooling down to the hive temperature from about 200 and something degrees Fahrenheit down to about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And at that temperature it all cools down and forms crystals, and then the treatment is done. So this is now cool enough that we could probably put oxalic acid in it without it vaporizing. So I'm going to put another dose in it. Oh, not quite. That's what happens if you put it on too early. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. That's why I only put a little bit in to start with, because it's still very hot. What you can do is just plunge it in hot water, in cold water. That will do the job very quickly. But I think we can just wait a minute. That will do it too. So now this week I'll be going around getting my oxalic acid treatments in all of my colonies. As soon as the oxalic acid treatment's done, I'm going to finish off getting the mouse guards on these hives, and I'll be going around all the hives getting their winter rims on, the Homosoap board for moisture absorbing, and the insulation top on as well. Then the sleeve Bee Cozy goes on, and then the whole thing is ready for the winter. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'll put this on. It's still a bit hot. I'm going to put it inside here. Put the towel on. And attach the battery again. So now that's warming up. Now this was a slightly bigger dose because we've got two supers here. This one would require a 1/4 teaspoon. This one requires 1/2 teaspoon. I tend to put just a little bit more than that in because I want to have a little bit of leeway, especially with leakages and that sort of thing. Not all the vapors are staying in. It'll take about a minute for this to be up to full heat. Again, now that it's already warm, it'll go faster, and the oxalic acid will be vaporizing in here pretty quickly. Let's have a look a little closer up. We'll see when it's starting to come out. A few field bees in there wondering what the heck is going on here. It's also a good opportunity to have a look and see if we can see any late season pollen coming in. Although we've had our first heavy frosts now, there's probably still some plants out there producing some pollen. Some frost-resistant plants, but not many. We have some vapors coming out here, so we'll just put that down. You can see some vapors coming out here. So we know the whole hive is filling up with that oxalic acid vapor, doing the business that we want. So basically, you can use your car battery, you can use a good strong lawnmower battery, or if you've got a lot of hives to deal with, you can invest in a deep cycle battery to take around with you, with a good carrying handle on it, that sort of thing. This colony is cooled down sufficiently that those vapors will have condensed all over the hive now. And if I took this off, I don't see any vapors coming out now. So this hive, the job is completed. So what I could do while I'm waiting for that to be ready is put my entrance reducer and mouse guard on the hive, because no time like the present to get these jobs done. This colony will be done now, but I'm pretty certain I'll disattach this. Take the vaporizer out. There's a few cooking bees on there. The oxalic acid's all gone. This is a bit of burnt wax and bees which are cooking there. As I say, although it does kill a few bees, it kills probably the fewest bees of just about all the mite treatments that we can use. So that is using the oxalic acid vaporizer. It's a tool that I strongly recommend. If you've got more than a hive or two, I'd strongly recommend you get them, because oxalic acid is a very cheap application and very effective as long as there's no brood in the colony. It doesn't penetrate the brood, but does a great job of killing off the mites that are on the phoretic bees, the phoretic mites on the adult bees. So now I'm going to get going with my larger tool for a faster rate of applying oxalic acid. So that's how I go about treating with oxalic acid vapor in my colony, single brood chambers, double brood chambers. I'll do the same thing with my nukes, just appropriate dosage according to the size unit that you're working on. I hope you found that useful. I'd certainly recommend that you get an oxalic acid vaporizer. It's a very, very useful tool. Over a period of a few years, if you've got multiple hives, it very quickly pays for itself. The vaporizer is a relatively expensive tool for a very inexpensive mite treatment, but it's one well worth doing, because you see, do no disturbance to the hives at all, and now I can go into winter knowing that they're going to go into the winter now with very few mites in the hive, because I've wiped them out with oxalic acid just before they stop flying, and at the time at which From here on in, they really won't get the opportunity to pick up mites, because I don't anticipate many flying days from here on in, or at least days that are warm enough for them to rob from other colonies and bring new mites in. So that's it for oxalic acid vapor treatment. I may show you a video subsequently of doing it on a much larger scale with my generator driven oxalic acid vaporizer. I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. See you next time.